Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live radio network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. My guest today is Sanaya Mayo, author of Identifying and Breaking the Cycle. Sanaya, welcome to Here's to Your Health.
Thank you.
You are a master's level in family counseling?
Yes.
And where'd you go to school?
Azusa Pacific University in Azusa, California.
And your undergraduate degree?
Everest College, Criminal Justice.
What prompted you to write this book on family health, on emotional health?
What prompted me to write this book was looking at my own personal life as well as clients and different things that I've seen throughout my life. I used to be over the youth at my old church, and I used to counsel a lot of youth, and I realized that at first I wanted to work with at-risk youth, and then I figured that by working in the youth program that the problem started within the family. So I wanted to focus on the family as a whole. And it just made me look at my life as an individual and the different things that I had to break away, the cycles that I realized and I actually did break away from.
And so even really, say, as a young teenager, you had a sense of our interior life, the emotional life. I mean, is that kind of the gift that you bring to this?
Definitely. I mean, I remember as a little kid, I always was the go-to person among my family and friends that they would seek advice. And I can remember far back as maybe 7, I was being raised in a blended family, and I just always thought to myself, this is something which is, blended families are beautiful, but when there's a step parent that doesn't treat the kids right, it could be a disaster. And I remember being 7 thinking, I never want my kids to experience this.
Right. And so for the listeners, give me a definition of the blended family. Tell me what that is.
Blended families are families that there's 2 parents that come together that already have kids. So they come and then they blend the family, like both parents are not the biological parents of all the children.
Well, that does seem like that could be very difficult.
It definitely is. You have multiple personalities in a home, and then you're trying to bring all the family together. And if it's not done in a right fashion, then it can be a disaster. Meaning, I talk about this in my book where I believe that when you meet someone, you should look at the qualities and how not they just benefit you, but how they also benefit your kids as well. And when you bring someone around your kids, you want to look for those type of things. And you kind of bring the person in by exposing them to your children and see how they interact with your children instead of just bringing them in and just having your child say, you know what, this is my new boyfriend or girlfriend, deal with it.
Right. I believe I read somewhere that the number one reason that second marriages break up is the children from the first marriages. Children from first marriages are powerful. They go after their mom or their dad and they say, no, we don't like that partner. And they can make everyone so miserable, including themselves, that the marriages break up. I have read that. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, it's definitely accurate. You have to think of it like this. No child wants to see their parents break up, even if they really need to break up. And you have this stranger that comes into your life that you know absolutely nothing about, and now you have to share your life with them. I mean, for any kid, that is an uncomfortable situation.
Right. And so you work with children and you work with parents now?
I work with families. I work with couples, children, adolescents, individuals. I work with the whole scope. I work with all type of clients. My passion is at-risk youth. That's why I wanted to go into criminal justice. However, just when I'm with clients and I see the different dynamics with the clients, such as their issues, it always stems back to the childhood. And I really believe that I really like Bowen's theory. However,
what theory is this?
This is Bowen's model for clinical counseling. And I always look at the family. To me, to get a better idea of a person, to look at their family is huge. You have to think like this: when we grow up, when we're babies, from the time we come out or infants, everything is taught to us, everything is modeled to us. And a lot of times when we become adults, we take those same things that were taught to us and apply them in our adulthood, whether it's healthy or unhealthy. And that's
Right.
a lot what my book talks about, is basically generational cycles that we repeat because we repeat what is taught to us as children.
Yes, I thought that was, frankly, very good. Very good something to point out, and I think a lot of people probably are completely unfamiliar with that. They don't realize that they're really kind of recycling their mom and their dad. 20, 25, or 30 years later, and sometimes that could be not good.
The reality of it is when you're a kid, there's definitely things that most people don't like, how they were raised, or but even when you don't like it, it's hard to break away from it. I can give you a scenario such as when I was growing up, I didn't like the fact that I was in a blended family, only because I felt like I was on the outside looking in most of the times, and I had a sense of feelings of rejection. And even though I knew it hurt and bothered me, it was hard for me to break away from that because this is my family. And to break away, it's almost going against the family, and you're kind of rejected even more because you're basically making a stance and saying, you know what, this is not healthy, this is not normal. And when you do that, everybody doesn't really like you breaking away and saying, you know what, the behaviors that you're acting out is not healthy. So there's a backlash that comes with it. It's well worth it in the end, but it's not as easy to break away from it.
Especially as a young teen or even a young adult. I mean, who has that kind of insight at age 15, 16, or 17, or even later to realize, no, you have to, maybe move away or something? That's a very difficult thing to do.
Definitely. I can think back when I was 15. I had my first daughter at 16. And I just remember thinking, I do not want my daughter to feel all the rejection that I felt. And even though I had the insight to realize that I didn't like the feeling, it was very hard for me to break away from it. It didn't just happen overnight. I think I was maybe 25 when I started pulling away and saying, you know what, I don't want my kids. Because at that point, it wasn't about me. I didn't want my kids to see the things that were taking place and actually starting to engage in it and be the same way and act out those same behaviors once they had kids. So it was imperative that I broke away from my kids, for their psyche and their future.
And now, how old's your daughter now, that one?
My oldest daughter is 16 now.
All right. And so in the 16 years since this earlier event, would you say that your biological parents or the new blended parents, have they come to realize some of your ideas had merit? Has there been any kind of discussion of that? Or no?
Definitely. When I let my dad read the book, he called me and he was almost in tears, and he was very apologetic, that the things that he allowed us to go through as children, he didn't realize the effects that it would have on us now. And sometimes as parents, we don't, because being a parent, it doesn't come with the manual. It doesn't come with the hand guide. So you learn as you go. And sometimes you take the things that you were taught or you've seen that your parents do to you, whether it was right or wrong, and you apply it to your children. So, I mean, I'm not upset with my dad. I thank him for being open to it, because a lot of times people, when you tell them the truth and give them a mirror to reflect, they don't want to see themselves. So I was actually proud of my dad that he took it with stride, and he thanked me for writing the book. So it came with its pros and cons. There were a few people that were mad, but the truth is the truth. And I wrote my book not to bash anyone. I wrote my book to help people because of things that I went through and things that I have seen within my clients, that it's repetitive. And it's a normal pattern and cycle within families across the world.
And how can you break that kind of cycle? What does your job entail?
As far as with my clients,
Well,
as far as my personal life.
No, say as a therapist. What do you do? What do you try to offer?
As a therapist, I always, when my clients come in, because I really believe that sometimes you could just put a Band-Aid and say, do this, that, and this, or this is what's going on. And it's not really, I believe as a therapist, I really believe in getting to the root of the problem.
Right.
what's the underlying issue. Because if you come in, say for instance, I